a skill set that we all need to gain is understanding data, but also explaining the real concept of what that's telling us, because that will allow leaders to basically point to areas where people are doing really, really well, but also where they need to improve. And that feedback loop will become easier and easier so that you can very quickly have at your fingertips the chance to improve amongst your teams.
What are the key strategies that can elevate your company's digital transformation to the next level? Welcome to the Care to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Corsetti. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with someone who can answer that question. Fred Whipp, the Chief Technology Officer at mpro5. With over 2 decades of experience in technology and digital transformation, Fred has been instrumental in guiding organizations through complex technological landscapes. Welcome, Fred. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Cynthia. Really appreciate it. And it's great to be here.
So first, why don't you tell us a little bit? I know it's in your article, and this podcast will be posted with your article. Can you please share with us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I just really wanted to give some insight into me and the company. So firstly, a bit about the company. So mpro5, we help digitize and automate process compliance around both retail, facilities management, and food service. And what this allows us to do is basically prove food safety and prove compliance across your entire business and give that reporting so that you can see which sites are compliant and which sites need some work, so that you can know if you got audited tomorrow that you would be safe and you wouldn't be at risk of fines from people like the FDA and everything like that. A bit about myself, obviously you can tell from my accent, I'm from deep in Tennessee, and that's a joke. But I'm originally from the UK, and that's where we're from. Our company was founded in 1996, so we've been around a while, and mpro5 was launched in 2014. And ever since, we've been taking this real approach to helping companies digitize their process compliance.
So what kind of companies specifically? I know you mentioned some food service, but what other types of companies do you work with?
So we work currently with, I believe, 43% of the British grocery retail market. So we're really big in retail. We also help with, big box retailers as well. So people, department stores, everything like that with their facilities management processes. And also, within the healthcare industry, we've got a big play with facility services in there as well. So we're very broad, but what that allows us to do is we take our expertise from other industries and cross-apply that to really give new insights into both retail, healthcare, food safety, and facilities management.
Okay, that's interesting. How large is your company?
Our company is currently about 70 people. We have a small team of about 5 here in the US as well. And so we're really a sales and marketing arm over here where we're growing into the US market. So it's a really exciting time for us to be here as well.
What do you see as changes there's a lot in the US, obviously changing with new administrations coming in and possibly changing a lot of the regulations and so on that we have with the FDA. What are some of your thoughts on that and how you guys are looking at it?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I think what we're going to see is a lot of companies are going to be having to pay more attention to the changes, because when it comes to food safety, there's a lot of things that have been regulated over time that have stayed the same, but we may see some big changes with the ingredients that are allowed in foods, as well as the temperatures that foods have to be cooked to and everything like that. So it's most important that companies are educating their staff on what these changes mean for them. And, we would use our tool to distribute those changes into the staff's hands so they can learn about what the differences are. And also they'll see their processes change as well. And it's just super important that people realize why that is happening and how it impacts them as a company.
Sometimes companies have to do things just based on their own desire to do the right thing. So if regulations are peeled back instead of increased or changed, what do you have to say to companies? Like what makes them have the moral compass to say, whether there's a regulation or not, we want to make sure that we are meeting these guidelines?
Yeah, to take safe food as an example. So we're just in a month right now where there's basically been a food safety recall every day this month. And if regulations are to be peeled back, well, there's no pressure to comply. However, there is a massive moral statement there that you want your company to be compliant, but also to be seen to be upholding a really high standard where people are not getting sick from unsafe food. And, you may have less regulations to comply with, but it's so important that your brand is upheld and that you're seen as a company that is providing really safe, high quality food so that you keep customers coming back, which improves your top line anyway.
And you talk a little bit about having digital transformation impacting the culture of an organization. Tell me more about that.
I think it's all about empowerment because a lot of tools out there are sort of reserved for the C-suite, the directors and everything like that. By putting a mobile device in everybody's hands with something like mpro5, it's empowering them to complete their job digitally and have that digital footprint to show what a fantastic job they are doing. And also, to take that food safety example, if I am working on a food safety line or in a grocery store and I notice something like, a food item that's out of date, we want to empower them to notice that, raise it in the app, raise it to a manager so that they can get in front of that as well. So culturally, that drives that impact where everybody feels like they're making a difference and they can all be looking out for these items as well. And ultimately, what we've seen with our customers is that empowers them to come with new ideas, which is always the most exciting part. What if we created a workflow where we take these items off the shelf as we see them walking around the store? And it just leads to those efficiency gains for the top line and for management as well.
So you're just starting to branch into the U.S. market. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're fairly new here. We've been here for about 2 years now. We've started to gain some customers over here, but we're really looking to grow within the sort of grocery retail space because that's where we're seeing so much success over the UK. And we know we can bring so many effective use cases into that industry as well.
What's different about mpro5 than anything else that's out there?
So for mpro5, it's all about service. So we come in and we really understand what your business goals are. So where you can have point solutions that will tell you the temperatures of your refrigerators and they'll stop there. We will come in and understand where you're looking to save costs, your biggest sort of directives for the year. And we will also customize those workflows down to, individual tasks get raised to and everything like that. So you're getting a fully customized solution for your organization. Mm-hmm. And we give ongoing service as well. So if you come to us and you say, right, we've got a new initiative, we can build that into our application as well so that you continue to grow with mpro5.
Okay. How does that change the way leaders in those organizations have to lead? Because I think digital transformation and AI overall is creating a new necessary skill set for leaders.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think leaders before would have to really, dig to get into the data, whereas now they have the potential to have that at their fingertips. Now that can be both a blessing and a curse, and it's important that that's managed in the right way. The reason why it could be a curse is because they have access to the data and they need to remind themselves that their employees may not have that understanding of what the data is telling them. So it's really important, and a skill set that we all need to gain is understanding data, but also explaining the real concept of what that's telling us. Because that will allow leaders to basically point to areas where people are doing really, really well, but also where they need to improve. And that feedback loop will become easier and easier, so that you can very quickly have at your fingertips the chance to improve amongst your teams.
Interesting. What would you say is the biggest responsibility that an organization has when it comes to implementing digital transformation?
I'd say it needs to be done on a scaled rollout. So it's not worth just ripping the Band-Aid and going, right, we're going to digitize everything from day one and it's all going to go great, because that's an area where people's barriers will go up. They'll think I'm being on paper. This is so different. And that's really difficult to get people into the habit of using a digital tool. So it's about scaling, and it's also about choosing the right partner that understands you as a company and understands where you're trying to get to. In doing so, you can take a year to gradually digitize these processes and clearly communicate with the teams as well that are going through that change, about training, about feedback as well, about things that they'd like to see change in their application and the digitization process. And what that does is that ensures that you've got a very gradual lift off where you're not scaring people by this massive change that's coming to their company.
Interesting. And it sounds like you guys have your arms around this really well and you're pretty solid. But I think some of the best learning along the way comes from mistakes. So share with me something that you or your organization has learned in the process of building to where you are today, that maybe you had to make a big pivot or change because something just didn't go as planned.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot over the years. There's no doubt about that. I think one thing that really struck us is we expected really sort of digital literacy amongst the executive group. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think we over-explain what we do in too much of technical jargon and everything like that. And what we try to do is offer people a platform with full digitization, and we use all these technical terms when really what at the end of the day they're looking for is understanding their employees better, knowing what they're getting up to, knowing what they're completing, knowing where they want to improve. And it really, I think the mistake we made was we went too heavily to focus on the technology itself rather than the people. And it's really the people that are completing these tasks that are the most important when it comes to that, because then you start to understand their behaviors, where they can improve, and also how they can prove that compliance as well.
So that's a really good point. People do tend to do that, especially these days. It's like all technology. So I want to back up a little bit and tell me more about what you learned about the people have to come first. Like what was the learning point in there?
Yeah, so I think with digital tools, it's so easy to focus on just numbers, metrics, everything like that. Mm-hmm. But let's look at a store manager for a grocery store as an example. So that person on a daily basis has to make sure that the store is open, that it's clean, that it's safe, that the shelves are stocked, that the checkouts are running. Mm-hmm. They have so much responsibility that they are in charge of. So you cannot just say, right, at this time you need to do this task and drop everything else, because they've got so much functioning in their store that it's so difficult to keep track of. So what we really did is we stripped back some of the, essential timeframes that they've got to complete that in, and then allow them to complete these tasks as they suit them throughout the day. What it does is it reduces that wall that goes up where they're scared of digitization. They're not willing to complete those tasks, and it ensures that they feel like this is actually helping them do that job. And then to round that out, they also start to see the data back in the palm of their hand as well. So they can see, oh, actually, yesterday we did a really good job of making sure the store was open on time, making sure that we did the cleans on time, making sure that all of those in-store routines were complete and there were no issues around the store. And we can replicate that today by implementing those same patterns as well.
So, Fred, and you have to excuse me because for a living, I am a leadership coach. So I focus on the leadership and on the people. And even though everything that you're saying is very valid and very accurate, it still sounds very data-driven. It's working the people through the data. It's like giving the people the data to do their job, giving the people the data to do it more easily, which is what digital transformation is all about. Yeah. But how do we keep the human side in all of this? Because I that's kind of one of my concerns. I just saw something, and I'm going to be doing a podcast on this with a group of AI people. I just saw this thing about young children, like in this world of AI, right? That because everything's done for them so much and so much entertainment instead of education and the lack of imagination, that part of their brain is actually atrophying, and they're not developing that part of their brain the way that, we did as kids, playing and using our imaginations. So I start to extrapolate that out into the world, into careers and people and leadership. So one of the important keys of leadership, like right in my program, is clarity, authenticity, responsibility, and engagement. Well, authenticity and engagement clearly require that humanity piece of it. And I think what I'm looking for and trying to establish here is how do you make sure that the human piece isn't lost when they're using tools like this?
So, and this is really key because I feel like a lot of platforms are getting this wrong right now. a lot of platforms just don't realize that it's being used, but at the end of the day, by a human. And I think it's all to do with empowering that person to feel like they are doing a good job and they are doing that human element. So in our application, what we focus on is like photo evidence and that feedback piece, making sure that you're going around, you're taking photos and showing that you've done a great job and proving that compliance and everything like that in a very physical way, because it's so easy to get caught up in checklists of yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe, that it's just repetition and repetition. And to that point you were saying earlier, it's like everything is already done for you anyway. But we sort of bring back that power to the employee, the individual, to take that photo evidence, to bring it into the real world, to really bring the management team into the store to show, look at the great job that I'm doing and look at how great and clean and compliant our stores are. And all of that evidence then allows them to look back and go, right, I have made a difference. That's the key, is I have made a difference. I think it's really easy in today's society and also corporations as well to feel like a tiny cog in a massive wheel and you don't really matter. Whereas with mpro5, I think when you're completing those tasks, it's got enough human feedback from you, from the photos, the signatures, the timestamps, everything like that, to feel like, you know what, I actually prevented a food safety outbreak. I actually prevented a slip and trip around the store, and that was me. So I think it really focuses on that human part.
It sounds almost like my aura ring. I'm earning little crowns, for stress relief, and when I do things, when I do the right thing. So it sounds similar to, do they earn things and they can actually see that physical?
Yeah, you can track your completion through the day, and then you get a big completion mark once you've done everything. It really sort of gamifies the process, kind of like the aura ring that you were mentioning, where you've got that completion element. And as you do that, you can track your completion over time. So you can see, I did a really good job yesterday. I want to keep doing that and everything. And I think what that does is it just keeps you feeling that love, if you like, where you feel like, food safety is actually something that I'm really passionate about. And I want to help, and I want to prove that I'm doing a good job there.
Well, I think it actually then is accomplishing it's accomplishing a few things, if I'm hearing you correctly, because often leaders themselves, human leaders, that there's a lot of personalities involved and a lot of different styles involved. Sometimes they will think somebody needs feedback, somebody they think they gave feedback to, but they really didn't give feedback to. So this is making the feedback consistent, if that's an accurate statement. And it also feels like it's just an ongoing motivator to keep the person excited about getting to the next level, almost like goal setting for them. I want to go through and I don't want to have any errors. I want to get those completion marks at the end of the week, and I want to do the thing, and keeping them connected to the real why behind what they're doing.
Yeah. And for me as a leader, it's so important that to go to my team and show something that they did really, really well, and also areas where they can improve. And if you're completing paperwork or checklists in just with no feedback, you're just thinking, well, what is the point? What does this mean? The temperature today was 93.6 of this item. What does that really mean? Whereas when you get them into that feedback loop of showing, you've completed that, it was compliant, or you completed that, and also thanks for letting us know, we've raised that to a manager, they actually get, okay, right, I'm making a difference here. I'm feeling that. And that's so important. I think I noticed today that I get looped into very repetitive days because every app is trying to keep you on there longer. The social media apps are just, keep scrolling. And we try and take away from that, get you actually feeling again that real world difference that you're making.
So in your company then, so it's different because the app you're creating is creating this feedback loops for their employees. What's it like in your particular leadership role? How many people report to you? And I'm assuming you're not using this app because you're not in food safety, you're in product development and sales. So tell me more about how you go about giving this feedback to your teams.
Yeah, so I have a team of 7, and both in the UK and the US. So I've got some over here and some, as I would say, back home. And managing them and that feedback loop is all around in the sales end, watching the tape and seeing what you've done and then giving feedback on that. And why is that important? Because if I come into a call with them and say, right, I'm just going to sit here and watch the tape with you. They're going to feel like, oh, this guy's too busy to care for me. He doesn't want to, really put in the time to give me that feedback. What I do is I go and watch the tape in my spare time. I've got those feedback points lined up so that when we get into that call, we can go, listen, I really loved that discovery call you had. I was really impressed when you established like the 3 key pain points that they were experiencing. The one thing that I want you to focus on next time is that I want you to drive a next step so that you're making sure that you're establishing to them, the leadership team can join a call to understand more about their pain points and everything like that. When they get into there and they get that feedback loop and you're talking about a call that they've just done, they start to think, yeah, that's a good point. And then feedback ideas that they're having. Now that you've said that, I want to make sure next time that I also position ourselves as the market leader in this space. Yeah, great. And it becomes a two-way street, which is really, really good. And that's what I try and motivate amongst my team is like, I can give you as much feedback as I think, and I can help you grow that way, but also bring your own ideas, bring your own inspiration, because that's how we grow. They're going to think of things that I'm not going to come up with. And that's a really good environment to have.
Awesome. What inspired you, Fred, to pursue a career in digital transformation?
For me, it's all about I think when I was growing up, everything was so slow. You would go any store that you would go into, any process that you had to complete. I'm sure you've completed government website forms, tax forms, everything like that. Everything was so inefficient, so slow. When I was growing up, it was literally just paper everywhere you see it. And then, getting into digitization is all about, for me, just focusing on efficiencies and everything like that. I think that there's still areas, like someone I know is completing on a house at the moment, and the amount of paperwork there is crazy. And I think we're just losing so much time. And I think as I've got older and as I've progressed, I've realized it's less about the paper, but it's more about saving the time so you can focus on what really matters. If you're the CEO of Walmart and you've got all these decisions to be making, you want to be making those decisions as effectively as possible, and you want to give the maximum time to those decisions as well. You don't want to spend all your time sifting through paperwork to get to the problem first. You actually want to have those problems in front of you so you can make that decision. So initially when I started, I thought it was just we really need to make things more efficient, but where I've got to now is saving that time is so important so people can do their job and do it really well.
Yeah. And as the older you get, the faster the time goes and the less of it you seem to have. So the more value we have to put on it.
Yeah. And I think in post-COVID as well, time is just super important to spend with your family. I think if I used to very transparently put in so much out of hours time, everything like that was just me grinding myself down. And I think the tools need to be in place so that you can be efficient, so that at the end of the day you've got time for yourself. And that's becoming more and more important, is that from a mental health perspective as well, you've got to save that time so that you can give yourself breaks, give yourself time with your friends and family, because that is also super important.
It's interesting. I can hear the dual passions for you. I can hear the passion on the personal side, as well as I can definitely hear the passion in your professional life.
Yeah. And I think for me, where I want to be is I want to grow to the level where I can consult on any business to say, these are the opportunities for efficiencies, but also here are the opportunities for you individually. If you complete these and you gain those efficiencies, you will get more time, number one, to do your job to the most effective level. But number two, to see, gains in terms of your own life. You get more time back, you get more rest, you get more breaks, you're not stressed anymore, you're not seeing those. And that, I think, is really what people feel at the end of the day, which is super important.
So can you share with me a significant challenge or something that you've faced in your career and the lessons you've learned from it?
Yeah, in my career, I think one of the biggest challenges I had to start out was not knowing where I fit. And I came out of university with a law degree and knew that law wasn't quite right for me. I went into internal audit, and I felt in internal audit, I was taking commissions away from salespeople that were falsifying placements. So it was a very in the weeds, difficult task because I was calling people and saying, sorry, I'm having to take your commission away. Wasn't very popular. I came out of that wanting to actually, be on the front end, be on the growth side, and got into data analytics and found data. And it was very interesting. And, you can see where those interests that I was just talking about started to come from, efficiencies, everything like that. And then finally, I found sales. And sales to me is really so inspiring because it's where you move the needle for both, internal growth, but also by helping people meet, their goals and giving them a solution that allows them to progress and grow. We've seen companies that have come to mpro5 and from a sales perspective, we've been able to help them, open more locations, win new contracts. And all of that just excites me so much. So I think the biggest challenge for me was just finding that in the first place. And I think there were so many times where I thought, yeah, this is good and enjoyable, but not quite right. Whereas now I really feel like I've found where I fit. And I think that's been the most sort of inspiring start. And the great thing is I've just hit that point. So I still got plenty of time to live into that, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, what advice would you give to a young professional starting out their career?
I think the biggest thing that I would say is there's no rule book, there's no playbook. There's lots of people out there that will tell you, you have to go into this career to earn the most money, or you have to go into this career because it will give you the most, most efficient time. I think there's no rule book. You can come out of university with a very random degree and still find your way to where you need to be. The most important thing is that you live into your personal values. So for me, my personal values are about listening to people, understanding them, understanding what makes them tick. And to me, sales, I live into that because I want to help. I want to be able to apply that. And if you're living into your personal values, you will find your way naturally to the career that suits you, that suits your lifestyle, and ultimately makes you want to come to work every day.
Well, that's awesome. I like that. So let's move to a quick lightning round. And I want you to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. What's your favorite leadership book?
Ooh, 5 a.m. Club.
Oh, I like that. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
After your book, I thought you were going to say
So funny thing is that I still do get up at 5 a.m. from reading that book, but it's so difficult. My natural state is night owl, and it's just so difficult for me to get out of that. But I do it because that book is excellent. I'd recommend it to anyone to read it.
Okay, what's one tech gadget you can't live without?
My phone.
Favorite way to unwind after a busy day?
Gym. Going to the gym.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Winston Churchill.
Oh, why Winston Churchill?
He's very inspiring. He's a great speaker. And I would love to pick his brains on keeping positivity in tough times. I think that's really inspiring.
I think we could all use that conversation right about now.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So as we wind up things up here, like my listeners already know that Care to Lead is my signature leadership system, and it's built on the foundation of 4 pillars, which are clarity, authenticity, responsibility, and engagement. So reflecting on these, which pillar resonates most with you, and how has it influenced your leadership style?
So that's a very good question. The A was authenticity, did you say? Yeah. I think authenticity to me, because I think throughout my career is what I found is the most effective thing is to be the best version of yourself. And there's no one else out there like you. So there will be people that have their own approaches and great feedback and things like that. But ultimately, if you live into who you are and what you believe in, that will allow you to be effective as a leader. And I think the way that I've lived into that is by, continuing to find my way towards sales and towards this growth area that I'm in now, because I found that that's what aligns with me the most. And that allows me to be truly authentic with the people that I work with as well, and show them their path to being, showing up as authentic themselves.
I love that. Is there anything that we haven't covered today that you would like our listeners to know?
I don't think so. I think, it's great to talk about mpro5 as always. I just like to mention like mpro5.com is the place to go if you're looking for anything when it comes to digitization of your workflows. We really focus on process compliance, but this has been really enjoyable, Cynthia, and I really appreciate the time.
Well, it's absolutely been a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your insights with us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, leaders who care to lead.